I want to tell you about how I became a servant leader. The term servant leader has become this used all over the place thing, but for me, it hit me hard really in just a moment, literally 2 decades before I even knew what the term meant. I'd already had my first leadership position, and it was, to be honest, an unmitigated disaster. It was terrible. I was awful. And a few years had gone by, and a little bit before I would get my second chance, I got to see what it means to be a servant leader, to be dedicated to your people. It happened thanks to a gentleman named Jack. And Jack was a serial entrepreneur. He had many small businesses, the vast majority of which were out of the area from where my organization was. And so we would see him only rarely. He lived out of town and would just come visit us every 2 or 3 weeks. And for the most part, we wouldn't even know when. And on the day in question, it was a small photo lab, by the way, the sort of thing that it was 1 hour photo lab back before you had the full camera development studio and everything sitting in your back pocket. And being a 1 hour photo thing was its own special technology boost at the time, and we were busy. We were really busy that day. And as it happened, we only had one person that was out front in a lobby that was full of people. And so I had stood up from processing some film and whatnot, turned around, saw what it was. I started to go outside, and one of my coworkers, we'll call Dave, was just being hammered by a customer. He was being screamed at. Everything about him was being questioned, what an idiot he was and whatnot. All these other customers in the room are just taken aback. They don't know what to do. And as I'm walking through the door, I don't know what to do. I'm thinking I'm going to step up and help the next customer, but I'm just taken aback. When who should come in through the side door but Jack? And Jack, being who he is, he walked through, opened the door, looked at everybody for a second, looked at what was happening, surveyed the other customers, and in the process, about a second, decided what he was going to do. And he walked around the counter, stepped right in front of Dave, leaned across in front of this customer that we'll call Lady M, and said, "Get the F out of my store." Now, his F had a few extra letters to it, but she would say, "But, he did it. Get the F out of my store." Everyone was, of course, shocked. I was shocked. They were shocked. And Lady M, well, she was dumbfounded. She said, "What about my photos?" Grabbed them up, stuffed them in the envelope. Dave, by the way, had done everything that could be done for those photos. Sometimes photographers make mistakes, especially back then when the camera didn't do everything for you. He said, "Take them." Tossed them towards the door. He said, "Don't ever come back. No one treats my people that way." And then he watched her get almost to the door. He looked at the next customer and smiled really big, said, "Can I help you?" And so we would work through the crowd. But one of the things I noticed right away is everyone in the room relaxed. All these people that had been really tense, they just watched one of their fellow customers get screamed at, sworn at, kicked out of the store. And you know what? They were happy about it. And later that day, Jack would call us all together, and he would say, "Hey, obviously we had some big things happen around here today, and I want you to understand something." He says, "There's this old saying that says the customer's always right. And customers, they're really important. If we don't have them, we can't do business. But you guys are also important. There are thousands of customers out there for us. Most of them love us. But there's just a few of you. And without you, we can't serve our customers. So I don't want you to ever feel that you have to take that kind of abuse. You're here for them, that's true. But you're here to serve them the best you can, and that doesn't give them the right to abuse you." Now, 6 months later, I would wind up taking over leadership in that role, and who should come through the door but Miss Lady M. And now I'm in the leadership role, and I have to make a split-second decision, and I decided to see how this would go. And she walks through, and she's a little sheepish. She's not sure about being there, and I can tell it is the first time we've seen her. I start writing down her name, and she knows now that I know who she is. She would be a great regular customer for us forever. I don't know whether she had a bad day or whatever, but the ground rules were set. And our people knew. In that moment, when Jack called us together and said how it was going to be, he had every one of us. We were that much more dedicated and that much more able in what we did because we didn't have to worry about it. We knew he had our back. I'm hoping the takeaway for you is to have your people's back, because then they'll have yours.